Hey, and welcome to another video from Bill Sky, the assembly guy. What we're going to do today is we are going to learn how to create a Microsoft Visual Studio 2022 assembly language project, both 32-bit and 64-bit, using the Komanetsky functions. Now, the Komanetsky functions are a set of libraries that allow you to do screen and keyboard input and output very, very easily. So you can get started with this quick, and then later on, as you hone your skills, you'll be able to write those kind of functions yourself. It's totally cool. So let's get to it, okay? I'm going to open up any web browser, and I'm going to type in this URL. HTTPS, very important to put the S, thekomanetsky.com, YouTube, and then we're going to say assembly, software, and I'll go ahead and put this URL out on the notes for the video, and then Komanetsky functions _ windows.zip. Oh, and I forgot a slash there. And it will actually download it to your downloads folder. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize my browser, go to my home folder, go to downloads, and there they are. It looks like I already had it downloaded, so I'm going to go ahead and just delete the first one. And so this is the file that you should see downloaded. Go ahead and double click on that. Now what I like to do is I would just drag that folder that's inside that zip file. I'll go ahead and just drag that to the desktop. Makes it very simple. And now I'm going to click on this PC and double click on local disk C. And then I'm just going to drag that folder onto my C drive. Now it may ask you for administrative privileges. Just go ahead and say yes. There's nothing strange in this folder. There's no viruses or anything like that. Double click on the Komanetsky's functions, and you're going to see a number of things. You're going to see some include files. Notice it has the .inc at the end. And you're also going to see your link library object file. So I have them for both 32-bit and 64-bit. Also, there's a user's guide or a programmer's guide here on how to use it. This particular version is July 20th, version B. And I've got everything documented in here. I even have some example usage for it. I also tell you if the operating system, if it's available on Linux and or Windows. In this case, that one's just on Windows. But this is pretty much how you'll see application programmer interface documentation if it's done well. Oh, a little bit of self-aggrandizing there. You can see on this one that the print string function, which is the one we're going to do today, that is available on both Linux and Windows 10 and 11. So let's get down to it. Let's go ahead and start using these libraries. Now you can delete the downloaded file if you'd like. We already have it on our C drive, so we know where to go find it. But it might be a good idea to save that, but you can always download it at any time. All right, so let's go ahead and start Visual Studio up. And we're going to create, actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a project from a template, an x86 template that I created in the 64-bit project, video. And you can see we've got the x86 and x64. So let's go ahead and set up the x86 project to use the Komanetsky functions, and then we'll do the same for 64-bit. So go ahead and click on your assembly x86 template. Now if you didn't create the templates, go back to the 64-bit, creating a 64-bit project video, and I show you how to do all of that. It's just a few minutes, and it's very, very useful. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Assembler x86 template and click Next. Now I'm going to give it a very good name. So I'm going to say x86 Komanetsky functions template. So I know it's an assembly language program. I know it's 32-bit. I know it's going to be set up for the Komanetsky functions, and I know it's going to be a template. And click Create. Now this project should be all set up for you, other than that silly little thing up at the top of the window, which is the x64. Even though this was saved as a 32-bit template, it still shows x64. So it takes a couple of seconds for it to, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and click x86. And under source files, there's my main. Okay, so the only thing you need now is a single statement. So we're going to say include Komanetsky. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to include. I forgot. So let's take a look. So it's going to be under the C drive, Komanetsky functions. So what we want to do is we want to include this 32-bit library.inc file into our project. So to do that, we simply say include functions 32-bit library.inc. Now I'm going to save and build this, and we are going to see a problem, which is fine. I click rebuild solution. It's not going to be able to find that file. It cannot find the function 32-bit library.inc file. So let's go ahead and set up the project to find that file. And the way that you do that is you come over here to the Solution Explorer, you right-click on your project. I right-clicked on it twice, and you click on Properties. And under Properties, you want to go to VC++ Directories, Include Directories, and I'm going to click on the drop-down list and click Edit. Now I want to specify a directory that I want to add to this, so I'm going to click the entry, and I'm going to type C:\/ and start typing Komanetsky functions. And Visual Studio 2022 is pretty cool. It finds that folder, so I don't have to type the whole thing. I just go down here and double click it, and then click OK. Now that's for the include file. We also want to include the link library, the library file, the object file, which we can also see down here. We also want to make sure that this file is part of our project. So the way that you do that, in the same window, to the right of library directories, I'm going to drop down and click Edit. I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Double click on Komanetsky functions, click OK, and click OK. Now let's see what happens when I say build solution. Okay, so it built just fine, but we haven't actually used any of our functions yet. So let's go ahead, a little bit more first time assembly language code here. I'm going to, underneath .data, I'm going to create a variable name called welcome prompt. And I'm going to say define byte. That's what DB stands for. I'm going to define a bunch of bytes. And I'm going to say welcome to my project. Now, something that's very important whenever you create a string like this or an array of character bytes, you want to say comma 0h. You always want to null terminate all of your string variables. And we'll talk about that in future videos. So that is our first variable, a variable name welcome prompt. Actually, it's called a memory label. The W begins at welcome prompt. Each of these entries is going to take up 1 byte, 8 bits. That's why we say define byte. Now, I love to build every time I change a single line of code or just a few lines of code to make sure I didn't do something strange. Like, let's say if I forgot to put the comma there, I save all and I build, we're going to get an assembler error, which is great because I only may change 1 line of code. I know where the error is. So there it is. All right, so build, you should get 0 errors. Build 1 succeeded, 0 failed. All right, so let's go ahead and call a Komanetsky function. Now, I'm going to load up the programmer's guide here. And in the programmer's guide, you're going to see a bunch of stuff in the table of contents. Printing text to standard out. I think print string is what we're looking for. I want to print a string, so I'm going to go to page 7. And the page numbers are on the bottom, 5, 6, there's 7. And there's my print string. It is compatible with Windows as well as Linux. Okay, it's going to print a string, and it actually shows you example code to do that. Now this is Linux code, but it's a lot like Windows code. So we have to create our string. Notice it is null terminated at the end. We have to push the address of that string onto the stack. That's what that stack 4096 was about, creating a stack for our application. And then we call the print string function. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to push. Now, if I just say push welcome prompt, like we saw in the example in the programmer's guide, and then I say call print string, let's see how this builds. Tells me I got a problem here on line 13. That's because on Windows we have to put the word offset when we want to say we want to push an address. So I want to push the address of welcome prompt onto the stack. Now in Linux you don't have to do that, but on Windows you do. You have to use that macro offset, and then you call print string. All right, we're going to save all and build it. Oh, problem, unresolved external symbol, print string. It doesn't know what we're talking about. That's because we didn't tell it what library to load in the link. So I'm going to go back over here to the project. Oops, I clicked on it twice. I'm going to go to properties. I'm now going to expand linker, and I'm going to click input. To the right of additional dependencies, I'm going to drop down and say edit. And I want to now make sure that this object file is part of the link. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in .obj. Click OK. Click OK. Now I'm going to build it. It should build just fine, which it did. Now I'm going to run it. And it said, oh, it said, welcome to my project. Awesome. What if I wanted to put a couple of blank lines after my welcome to my project? There's another function called printendl. So I'm going to call printendl. Let's do that a couple times. And the printendl is just going to take the cursor to the next line. So I'm going to do that twice. I'm going to go ahead and build it. Notice printendl doesn't take any arguments. I didn't have to push anything onto the stack before I called printendl because it's all self-contained. All right, it built okay. I'm going to start it without debugging, and now we've got our welcome with the two blank lines. All right, let's do the same thing. Actually, before we do the 64-bit, let's go ahead and save this as a template because I don't want to have to do all that setting stuff again. So I'm going to go up to Project, Export Project. And I actually like this template name. That's why we gave it that meaningful name when I created the project. So I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and say Finish. So now we have a 64-bit version using the Komanetsky functions. So now let's create the 64-bit functions. So I close the solution by File, Close Solution. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. I'm going to select the 64-bit template. And I want to give this a good name, just like we did the 32-bit one, because we're going to make this into a template. Okay, the 64 is fine. Now we've got some settings to do, just like we did before. Actually, everything should be set up because this is 64-bit, except for the link libraries. Okay? So let's go ahead and include. And what was the name of that? That was, this time we're going to use the functions 64-bit library.inc. Oops. So functions 64-bit library.inc. Now what I'm doing here is I'm simply clicking on the file once, Control-C to copy that so I don't have to type it all in, and then Control-V to paste it. So we pound include that. This should not build because it doesn't know where this is. So just like the 32-bit one, we have to set up the include files. So right-click on your project, go to Properties. We're going to go to VC++ directories, include directories, drop down edit, just like we did in Windows. Or I'm sorry, 32-bit. Go to the Komanetsky functions, say OK. Now go to library directories, drop that down. edit, add entry. All right, great. So we already know that we're going to need a linker input file. So under linker, we click on input, additional dependencies, drop that down and say edit. Let's remember what the name of it is. The name of it is function 64-bit library. .obj. Click OK. Click OK. All right, now let's go ahead and build it. Make sure that our changes worked. We get this very strange error right here. We have to modify something else in the settings because when I built these libraries, I'm not sure what's happening here. With a little investigation, I could figure it out. But we have to set this parameter that says large address aware to no. So we have to set that up. So, and this happens in the linker. You can tell that by the LNK. So that happened in the linker step. So we have to right click on our project once again. Are you seeing why it's a good idea to set up templates? Because you don't have to go through all this anymore. And I'm going to click on all options and I'm going to click on large. Enable large address. And to the right, I'm going to just type no. And click OK. All right, now just because I like to do this, I'm going to click on build clean, just so I have a clean, and I'm going to say build. All right, so it built just fine. Now it doesn't do anything. Again, I'm going to go to debug and just start without debugging, and it didn't do anything. So let's go ahead and do what we did in the 32-bit version. I'm going to create a welcome prompt. Define bytes, welcome to my program. And as I did in 32-bit, we null terminate it. And now I'm going to call. Oh, can't call it first. We have to send it the argument. So I'm going to push the offset of welcome prompt onto the stack. Call print string. I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive about tabbing because it makes your code look so much better. All right, and then I'm going to call print and L and call print and L again. Let's save that. Oh, 64-bit is a little bit different. It's not allowing me to simply push the address of welcome prompt onto the stack. So what I have to do is I have to move to a register the address of welcome prompt, and then I push the register. Now RSI is a register in the CPU that's used quite often for addresses, and that's why we're doing that. So we put the address of welcome prompt into RSI, and then we push RSI. Let's go ahead and build the solution, and it worked out great. Let's go ahead and debug it start without debugging, and there's our welcome to my program. Worked great. All right, let's quickly export this as a template. So I go to Project, Export Template. Next, it's got the name I want because I set up the project with that name, and I click Finish. There it is. There's my 4 templates. Very useful. I'm going to close the solution, and I'm going to create a new 64-bit project from my template. So create a new project. You can see that because they're new and I haven't restarted Visual Studio, they're at the top. So I'm going to click on that, click new, just call it, I'm just going to call it delete me because it's just a test. I want to make sure it works okay. Takes it a couple of seconds for it to get set up. There's my project, my source file. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to build it. And I'm going to start without debugging. So you can see that creating a template is so important to make your life as a developer much easier. All right, that's it. We created a project, both 32 and 64-bit. We linked it with the 32-bit or 64-bit Komanetsky functions, and we could do file I. Oh, sorry, not file I/O. We could do screen I/O. But you can also do keyboard input. Take a look at that user's guide, that programmer's guide. It'll tell you how to do it. Hope to see you at the next video.